Anyone can sell electronics. At Electronics Expo, they do more than sell products. They design, install, and support complete technology solutions. From home theaters and whole home audio to lighting, shades, automation, networking, security cameras, and premium entertainment systems. For over 22 years, they've helped thousands of homeowners experience technology at its very best. See the difference for yourself. Visit their Wayne or Paramus stores in New Jersey or shop now at electronicsexpo.com.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
Well, we have a special guest in the studio today, and his name was Michael Cohen, President Trump's former attorney and confidant. I can say attorney and confidant.
Absolutely. And by the way, a huge close ally of the president. You kidding? And friend and very trusted advisor, probably the most trusted advisor.
Yeah. And people are saying, well, what happened? You and Trump were so far apart. Well, on this show today, you will find out what happened.
Well, I'd like to say that I'm a special guest, except I seem to be here at WABC on a regular basis.
More than home.
It is more than home, thanks to you and second chances. But let me say this. I'm excited to start the Sunday show at 5 o'clock called When You Know, You Know. But I have gotten, over the course of the last couple of days, I have gotten no less than 30 inquiries as to how did this all happen, whether it's the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, the Post, you name it. Everyone has been asking, how did something like this happen? Because, yeah, I was considered a critic, not just of the president. The president was a major critic of mine as well. And truth be told, the president and I, we rekindled our relationship because of a shared experience of betrayal. It's really all about betrayal. And if you want to understand how it all happened, well, you do have to take a look at the facts, but more importantly, the timeline. Because for years, the left, they embraced me as their ultimate weapon against him. But loyalty on that side of the aisle, it's completely transactional. And the moment that I deviated from their script, well, the pact, they turned feral. I mean, it started when I published on my Substack that I felt pressured and coerced by New York Attorney General Tish James and District Attorney Alvin Bragg to testify in a specific manner. And so I followed that by also stating, and this drove them absolutely crazy, I stated unequivocally that during my entire tenure, almost 15 years with President Trump, I never once witnessed, I never heard of, I never saw, never communicated, never saw him in the office, Jeffrey Epstein, never saw Trump speaking to him, never heard him on the speaker box. And John, you know, Trump never picks up the phone. It's always the speaker box on his desk. And those two things shattered their narrative. And the far left, they literally went on this absolute warpath against me. Literally driving days, and I mean days, of malicious, defamatory headlines against me, attacking my social media posts, whether it's Substack. I think I lost 30,000 followers just on my Substack. My YouTube, the same thing. X, you name it. Every single platform ended up having people turn and say, oh my God, I can't believe that you would say this about Tish James and Alvin Bragg and so on. Now, here's the interesting thing. What they did, meaning the far left, they're the ones that created, John, this relationship and brought back the relationship, believe it or not, with the president, because the president saw what was happening. It was a White House friend and an insider, and I'm not going to mention his name. I'm going to keep that to myself for the time being. Brought the media onslaught to the president's attention. And the president knew exactly what it felt like to be at the center of that kind of partisan target practice. Plain and simple. And out of nowhere, then when I was sitting with my wife at a restaurant, my phone buzzed. And it was a text from that friend who expressed to me the president's genuine empathy for the hell that I was being dragged through yet again. And I deeply appreciated that text. And so I actually texted the president. I thanked him, expressed my sincere hope that this long, exhausting feud between the two of us could finally end. And what I found even more interesting is that he replied almost immediately, agreeing that it was actually time for us to meet, something I had put in the text. We both knew the cost of this war. And in that moment, the ice between us, it didn't just melt, it broke. And that's how it all happened.
You know, Michael, I have a lot of questions. When did this happen? Like, when did the kind of come together happen?
About 6-7 months ago is when this pretty much took place.
And were you surprised?
I was very surprised. I mean, you know, when I got that text message, when I got the buzz, I was, wow. I mean, imagine for 8 years, there was no one closer to the president than I. And I want the listeners to understand that in 2011, the entire campaign for Donald Trump's potential bid for the presidency existed with two people, Donald Trump and Michael Cohen. That was it. How the whole campaign started is I saw a article and I ripped it out from the newspaper, and it said, of all the people, who would you want to see run for the presidency of the United States? And 5% or so said Donald J. Trump. So I brought it to him. I knocked on the door. I said, hey, boss. I said, you want to see something really cool? He looked at it. And he gave me that look, and he says, you know, we should do it. He goes, do you? Of course, I know what that means. He wanted me to really take a look into it. I brought on a lawyer who literally created what I refer to as the Bible. It broke down every city, every state, every district, who you needed to talk to in order to win the election. I still have it. In fact, I'm probably going to put it in the presidential library when it's up and built. Because
and what year was that? When was that?
2011.
Wow.
And the only reason that Trump chose not to do it is at that time he had just purchased 2 golf courses, one in Scotland, one in Ireland. He just acquired the Doral. There was a lot of deals going on. And as co-president of Trump Productions, we had finished and negotiated another season of The Apprentice that paid him his share, $65 million. And as Trump turned around and always said, you don't walk away from Hollywood. Hollywood walks away from you. And when they wanted him that bad, he wasn't walking away.
Wow.
Wow, that is really interesting. Judge Weinberg, your thoughts?
Judge Weinberg looks a little shocked right now.
He does.
Your Honor?
I've been listening to this, and I have to tell you something. It's one of the great stories of our times. You have somebody who's a close personal friend of the president and the future president and the president, somebody who's an insider, his lawyer, his confidant, his friend, and then they had a vast breakup, and it was played by political opponents to the disadvantage of Donald Trump and to disadvantage of Michael Cohen. And you had these cases in New York, one a state case, one a case involving civil issue, another state case, a criminal case. Neither one, in my opinion, as a lawyer and as a judge, had any merit at all. They were just going after Trump. It's literally said that when Trump went down the escalator that day in 2016, he had a target on his back. And so Michael Cohen, in many ways, was used in those investigations, in those prosecutions. And when he wasn't playing ball with the narrative that they wanted, they turned upon him. And I think it speaks very well of President Trump to have this reconciliation, this rapprochement with Michael Cohen, because he understands, he identifies what it's like to be a victim.
You know, one of the things that I constantly tell people is that it wasn't as if though I raised my hand and said, "Oh, pick me." Like, remember Arnold Horshack from Welcome Back, Kotter? It wasn't like I picked up my arm. Oh, please pick me. I want to testify. I was subpoenaed to testify.
Yeah, they pursued you.
They sure did. And I understand. They also had all the documentation, right? They also had the corroborating testimony, and they needed just somebody within which to corroborate either the documentary evidence or the corroborating testimony. They didn't care about me. But the part I do still find the most interesting is that I never knew how would it be possible for the president and I to rekindle this relationship, this friendship, because our friendship was very, very significant. In fact, it was so significant, I'm the only person who actually had his Outlook, all of his contacts and phone numbers and information was also in my phone. We shared contacts. I mean, I don't share contacts with my wife, right? So you could understand the relationship that existed. Well, a lot of things happened. Tish James, as an example, went ahead and ran on for her campaign on the notion that I'm going to get Donald Trump. That's how she ended up. And I have a problem, and I've always maintained the same line. Nothing new today that I'm saying is different than what I had said in the past, even when I was subpoenaed witness for her trial. I have a real problem with somebody who wants to run targeting an individual, because run on your own credentials, your own merit, and then if that person did something wrong, then you go after them. But to literally run a campaign on going after an individual, that to me is weaponization, and I don't ascribe to it.
Question. You said this happened about 7 months ago.
Correct.
Why did it take 7 months for me to get a phone call?
John, I truly don't know. But, I started receiving a lot of interest in my podcasts, in my YouTube, in my Substacks, and my other various platforms of social media from various different companies. And I didn't want to go anywhere until I had the opportunity to come here to WABC, because in all fairness, John, you are sort of the CEO of Second Chances. I know there were a lot of people here, from Bill O'Reilly to Andrew Cuomo. You're the source of second chances. And I believe that I am one of those second chance recipients, to which I'm incredibly thankful for. And I believe that this station is going to give me the ability to really use the platform as a megaphone for continuing to speak truth. And I say it all the time. It's not that all of a sudden we're talking black to white, that I agree with every single thing that the president says or does. I do not. I don't agree with everything I say and do on a regular basis either, but I don't agree with 100%.
But you have intuition of what you think he might have done or should have done.
Correct. And, one of the things that I did, which was very different than pretty much anybody else at the Trump organization, and what I'm also seeing there in D.C., people are afraid to tell them their opinions on certain things, that if Trump wants to do X, then they have to just say, yes, sure. That's not true. He doesn't want that. He's not looking for people to be yes men. He wants input. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to use your input. He might change it. I always called it watering down the poison, right? So just be big enough to tell the president of the United States that maybe we can do it this way. It doesn't necessarily have to be the instinctual. And that's something that I think he's desperately missing.
We have to go on to our next guest. Would you stay in the studio with us till 6?
John, you're the boss, so I have no choice.
That's the right answer.
You mentioned this guy's name, and our next guest is another winner. He became, he went to the moon.
Yes, he did.
And Rita, why don't you bring him in?
Absolutely. Mega big nonfiction best-selling author, the great Bill O'Reilly.
Oh.
And Bill, you probably have heard just some blockbuster comments that we've just been listening to all with Michael Cohen here in the studio, who's joining us. By the way, your new show, I want to tell everybody, starts on Sunday, 5 to 6, when you know, you know. I love the name.
You like the name, right?
I love the name. Love the name, Michael.
Like Bill will tell you, when you know, you know.
Right, Bill? What do you think?
Well, the more information we can get about the Trump administration is better for the country. So you want people that know the rhythm of the president and how he does things, because that's usually not front and center. So I'm hoping the counselor brings very good, solid information, maybe get some scoops, and certainly it will be a worthwhile enterprise.
You know, Bill, one thing I wanted to ask Michael, too, while he's here still, also is about the Epstein thing. That was kind of interesting to me, because I had never heard sort of that the whole agenda of Letitia James and Alvin Bragg, you believe, was also Epstein, right? It seemed, right? Or at least they wanted information. They
wanted information initially. You know, when I was in Otisville and the DA's office came 3 times to speak to me, the first thing that they had asked is, what do you know about the Epstein file? And there was one case that I dealt with. It was a Jane Doe case. And that Jane Doe, mind you, there are more Jane Doe cases filed, and Your Honor, you'll turn around and acknowledge this one. There are more Jane Doe cases filed around the country than there are Ford F-150 pickup trucks.
Right.
They conflated multiple different Jane Doe cases to the one that I handled. The one that I handled came in, was put on my desk. I reached out to the lawyer. I reached out to an investigator. We sent somebody to the location. Turns out it wasn't a home. It wasn't an apartment building. It was a vacant lot. I contacted the lawyer. I said to him, you don't have a client, do you? So he goes, well, why would you say? I said, well, something just seems really off here. And he acknowledged he never met the client. Never met the client, that it was a referral from somebody else. I said, well, have you checked out the location? Because it's a vacant parking lot. So he said, no, I didn't. He goes, is that true? I said, check it out for yourself. He goes, I take your word for it. And he withdrew the case. That's where it started and stopped. Other than that, again, I have never met Jeffrey. I only live 10 blocks away from him. I'm not sure if I've ever eaten in the same restaurant at the same time. I never saw Jeffrey Epstein in the office. I never heard him on the phone. I never heard Trump even talk about him. The only conversation I ever had with Trump had to do with that Jane Doe case. Now, there's another Jane Doe case, the Katie Johnson Jane Doe case, completely different than mine. Even the Katie Johnson Jane Doe lawyer acknowledged I never met, never spoke with, never had any communication with anyone named Michael Cohen. But then you have people like a Tara Palmieri or a Lev Parnas and these folks at the far left, you know, they rage bait. They do that dopamine rage hit of hatred to come after anybody that pulls them off of the script because they're clickbaiting off of them. And they've figured out how to monetize this, even at the expense, whether it's the president or John Doe. It doesn't make a difference, and it's wrong.
It is wrong. And you know, Bill, Michael Cohen's hitting on a very powerful point about just the weaponization of anything tied to President Trump. I mean, we even saw it this weekend. I was in D.C. this weekend. I had the honor of being with the president in the Oval Office on Friday.
I can't wait till he invites me. Honestly, I really want to see what they've done. I also want to end up going there. I want to take a walk through the ballroom. You know, I've seen his construction over the course of my decade and a half with him. I've watched him put up buildings like Trump Chicago, Trump World Tower, Trump Park Avenue.
It's beautiful.
You name it. I've been there.
It's beautiful. And Bill, you know it's beautiful. And you also know, too, that this weaponization that the judge that we were talking about, and also obviously Michael Cohen, you even saw it over the weekend. I mean, there were people who couldn't say happy 250 years to America. I mean, it's incredible, Bill.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between those people and the system that the counsel rightly points out is profiting. Plattner up in Maine is out. I don't know whether you guys got that information.
Yes, and in fact, Bill, let's when you say he's out, you saying he's out because of the new information that came out?
But I don't know. But he's not running anymore. So
Bill, you're saying he's withdrawn?
Yeah, when did that, Bill? Because we saw the new details, of course, that just came out before about this woman accusing him.
Yeah, well, the latest is that he is not going to run on the Democratic ticket. Now, I don't have any use for this guy at all, none. I think he's a destructive charlatan, but the accusation is the conviction. And so he enough was enough, I guess, for his campaign, and they probably did a couple of snap polls, and he's finished.
Hey,
And
Bill,
so-
Bill, let me ask you, just because I'm reading news here, it's saying that he's reflecting on the path forward, that he canceled a whole bunch of campaign events. Have you have heard, though, that indeed he has stepped away from the Democratic side? And I want to tell everybody, if I could, real quick, Bill, just because we didn't get to it at the top because we were lucky enough to have Michael here with us. But the news is that there was a woman who said in 2021 he raped her. And that was very serious. The first time we've heard of sexual assault allegations against him. And it was a woman he dated. She's a Democrat. She said, I support him politically. I know who he is. Obviously I'm a Democrat and I like him. But this is what happened. And she gave pretty graphic details. And I walked in when I saw John and the judge here a few minutes ago. I said, this is so damning. But you have seen, I see that he's saying he's trying to figure out where he's going.
The reporting I'm looking at from The Hill, NPR, other places saying he's taking the time to weigh the path forward, the best path forward.
You know that on the Friday show with John, I turned around and I said, I'm walking away, which I am, and I have done. I'm walking away from the Democratic Party and registering as an independent because I do not want to be affiliated to any party that's willing to take a guy like Plattner, an anti-Semite to the nth degree, now an alleged rapist. I want nothing to do with any party that's willing to back somebody like him.
I agree. It's disgusting. And Bill, don't you agree? I mean, with Michael, it is shocking. The fact that there was the other woman who he dated, she says that it was domestic violence, essentially, that he held her back. He put her, grabbed her shoulder, pushed her, locked her in a room. But this is now a sexual assault allegation. I mean, Bill, it is shocking that it took this for him to reflect on his campaign.
Well, number one, Rita, whenever you hear a politician use the word reflecting, you know he's finished.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Okay? If you're reflecting, you're out. I think Politico is reporting that he's out, but I don't know. And I don't know anything about the case at all. But I do know that this is an epidemic, and the accusation is a conviction on anybody they want to hit. And obviously this guy Plattner, they wanted him out because the polling shows that Susan Collins is pulling ahead. So I don't know whether, Democrats did it or Republicans did it. I don't know who the woman is. I don't know anything about it. I mean, we'll find out, I guess. But isn't it strange that after all of the publicity this guy gets, it takes this long?
Right.
It is. If somebody had said to me years ago, guys, like somebody with a Nazi tattoo, and it's a Totenkopf tattoo, I'm not Jewish, but to me,
well, I am, and I'm the son of a Holocaust survivor, named after my great grandfather, who was killed literally when the Nazis came to the house. So let me be very clear to my former Democratic Party. Shame on you for backing somebody like that. And you know what? On top of that, now with this alleged sexual assault allegations, look how fast that they are to turn around, point their finger at everybody else, right? They're so fast to point at everybody, except their backing of Plattner. I never understood it. This party, and then with now these Democratic Socialists, a concept I don't understand at all. Maybe the great Bill O'Reilly can enlighten me because I'm a little bit, let's just say, misinformed on what the hell it even means.
Yeah, Bill, where is this going? I mean, you hear all these vile anti-Israel claims from the Democratic Socialists. You got a guy with a Nazi tattoo. Where is the party going?
Well, number one, the situation is urban. So it's centered in the urban areas, and it's communism. It's not social. I love this socialism, democratic socialism. That does not exist. There's never been a party named after it. They don't exist here. The mugwumps did. They're not around anymore. But they're communists. And, he really should be ashamed of himself, the leader of the gang, and that's Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders went to Maine, went there, Jewish man, okay, and endorsed this guy. And then when they press, maybe the three of them that actually asked questions said, well, wait a minute. The guy's got an SS tattoo on his shirt, on his chest. What do you think? Some gobbledygook. But Bernie Sanders is the leader of this party. I wrote a column about how the communists, because that's what they are, they're not democratic socialists once again, they went after Schumer, and they got him. Schumer, you know, if you like Chuck, you better eat up his last 2 years because he's done. Absolutely done. He's not going to get any support from the Democratic Party. Ocasio-Cortez is going to beat him, and beat him badly. And I don't think Chucky is even going to bother with it. I think he'll retire. But they'll do anything. If you read my book, Confronting Evil, they'll turn on their own. I mean, you know, Sanders didn't. Sanders went up there and tried to prop this guy up because he wants to win the Senate for the midterms. But most of the communists will turn on their own if you don't pass the doctrinaire test. And that's what we're seeing in this country. And you know what, Marita, you know me a long time. I'm surprised. I did not predict this. I figured the progressive movement would stay in their little jar. Soros would continue to pump it in hundreds of millions of dollars into the campaign, and they would be happy with getting the most radical people elected. That's what I thought would happen. But once Mamdani won, this is morphed into a national movement to replace capitalism with communism. It will fail. It will fail because most Americans don't want this. But a lot of Americans are asleep right now. You got to wake up and find out what's going on here.
Well, you know, the difference between socialists and communists, I've always said that communists are carrying guns. And if they're communists, let them carry guns and let's have a gunfight.
Well, the difference is that socialists say, and there are socialists all over Europe, we don't want to take your property. Okay, we believe in private property. That's what they say. Communists do not. So Mamdani, very shrewd. He's already, into the apartment complexes, the rent freezes. He's going to try to take over transportation. As I told John a couple of weeks ago, he's going to try to take over food distribution. That is called means of production. Communists want to run means of production. That's what they do in China. Putin does it, okay? That's what they do in North Korea and in Cuba. The government runs all of that. So you, needing these things, you got a place to live, you got to have supper, are dependent totally on the communist politicians who run the show. So I hope, Counselor, that clears it up a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I actually felt the exact same way, where the Democratic Party, they turn so quickly on one another, whether...
It all started with President Obama. Never forget that. And never forget whose ring he kissed after he became president. Okay? Bill O'Reilly, thank you for coming on. We got to move on, and we need a break.
Yeah, Bill, thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you so much. And,
okay, guys.
Thank you. We love you, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so long.
And are we going to take a break?
Yeah,
we're going to come back.
We got Greg Jarrett.
And what is he going to talk about?
There were some big updates today in the case of Tyler Robinson. That's the guy accused of killing Charlie Kirk. And also, I can't wait to talk with him more about Graham Plattner, too, after this. Boy.
Welcome to a new era of baseball's great spectacle. The T-Mobile Home Run Derby, live on Netflix. The biggest sluggers in baseball put their talents to the test on All-Star Weekend. Raw power meets star power. Big swagger meets bigger slams. And you don't swing to make contact. You swing to make history. Watch the T-Mobile Home Run Derby live on Netflix, Monday, July 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby, and there is a lot of news breaking. First, of course, a big case today. This involves the guy who's accused of killing our friend Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson. That was in court, and a lot of the evidence came out of what's in the case, how they have the case against him. And, of course, everyone's wondering what's going to happen with Graham Plattner, too. And joining us now here is Greg Jarrett, the great Fox News legal analyst. Greg, I don't know if you heard just the new news that just broke. Graham Plattner is reflecting on his campaign. That's the political line he's putting out. There's a woman who dated him, and she accused him. She says that he raped her. One night he came intoxicated to her home 5 years ago, and she said, I had to come forward. She also says, by the way, this is one of the women who was in the New York Times report, but she was not named in that report. There was another woman who was. But in that report, I was reading a lot of details about her today. She was very disappointed that the media, that New York Times, downplayed the story, just like they did with the other woman in the New York Times case. And that's why she said, in part, I'm coming out now to say it wasn't like I was unhappy with him. I was raped by him, as she's saying. How serious is this, Greg Jarrett?
Oh, it's very serious. And, I have said on the air that I suspected Plattner wasn't going to make it all the way to the deadline for withdrawing his name as the nominee for his party. I forget the date of the cutoff. Yeah, I think it's mid-July. So, it's going to be coming up pretty soon, but he would need to drop out by that deadline, and the party would then have to very quickly pick a replacement, which might be the current Democrat governor who dropped out and has now suggested that she's willing to jump back in. So, this is pretty serious stuff. This guy, has got more baggage than, the baggage claim at JFK. I mean, it's just horrific stuff about him. And why politicians like Liz Warren and Ro Khanna would still endorse him, notwithstanding what we know about him, is, to me, utterly bewildering. But I guess they care more about power than what's right.
Greg, I haven't seen comments today from them because this story just broke, I think it was like an hour or so ago. But I haven't seen reaction from, you bring up a great point, from where's the Bernie Sanders? Let's see what he has to say now. Let's see what Ro Khanna says now. These are serious allegations, Judge.
Greg, the fact of the matter is, all along they've been covering up for him. All along they've allowed this to go forward. Where were the reasonable, sensible Democrats, the common sense Democrats who had a moral compass challenging this guy? The only one I saw in the Senate was Fetterman, and then you had the congressman from New Jersey,
right,
who also challenged him. But the silence in the Democratic Party was overwhelming.
And Judge, they even went further. Right after all that stuff came out with the New York Times report, I remember all of us were here together talking about this. There was that it was damning. Remember, it broke during our show. And Ro Khanna said, I'm going to be there tonight at his rally. And they blatantly said, we need the votes.
With all due respect, there was no silence here. There was actually an outright endorsement of this neo-Nazi.
Silence against the evil that this guy manifests.
I agree. And by the way, we have Michael Cohen with us, Greg Jarrett here, who has reconciled with President Trump, he was just sharing with us.
Well, look, Graham Plattner has a lot to answer for. He shouldn't be in the United States Senate. He shouldn't be running for office. He should be, in mental health counseling, because this is a guy who's got severe emotional psychiatric issues that need to be dealt with. And, I'm actually happy that this information is coming out now rather than later. But you're right. The politicians who have actively campaigned for him, endorsed him, they are equally complicit in this and need to be held accountable.
And Greg, before we let you go, the latest in the Tyler Robinson case, this is the guy accused, of course, of the assassination of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, the outcome of the preliminary hearing today is day one of 5 days. It's a fait accompli because the evidence against Robinson is compelling and overwhelming. You've got DNA evidence linking the defendant to the suspected murder weapon, his fingerprints on the trigger, spent cartridge, unfired bullets. The most incriminating evidence of all is the written admission that he left for his roommate saying, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it. And then he sends other incriminating text messages that are an explicit confession of what he'd done. So, I don't know what his defense is going to be. I can't imagine they're going to argue actual innocence. But look, I say this as a former defense attorney, there are some cases that are truly indefensible.
Yeah, it is so shocking. Judge Weinberg?
Greg, is this
you call indefensible when you have videotape of Luigi shooting the guy in the back?
Right, right. I mean, that's called clear cut.
The same rationale, the same arguments I would make in the Mangione case. The evidence is compelling. It's overwhelming. It looked for a while that he was going to admit guilt, and within 24 hours, the defense team reversed course. So, these guys get their day in court. They're presumed innocent. The burden of proof is on the prosecution. But as cases go, both of them are pretty easy cases to make.
Almost as easy as that FIFA call, right? The one where Trump ended up getting the red card.
And he said,
lifted.
He said, all I said was it was a bad call.
By the way, it was a terrible call. And at the end of the day, you know something? He actually did a benefit to Belgium. If Belgium hypothetically wins tonight, they can say that they beat America at its best, right? Because he is our number one player that they gave the red card to. And if America wins, well, so be it, because we're better than Belgium.
That's a good spin. That's
Amen.
a very good spin. Spoken like a true counselor.
A true sportscaster.
Exactly.
Rita, we have to take a break.
Yep, Greg, thank you very much, Greg. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Thank you, Greg. And Rita, how about the top news of the day?
It's the top news of the day. Here's Rita Cosby.
Well, John, as we have been talking about, the big news everyone's talking about is what's the future of Maine Senate candidate Graham Plattner. He says he is, quote, taking time to reflect after a sexual assault allegation was made against him. In a report by Politico, and it's a blockbuster, a woman who dated Plattner, a Democrat, accused him of forcing her to have sex with him 5 years ago, despite repeated objections. Plattner has denied the allegations. And also, President Trump announced the official start of his new investment accounts for children. Trump rang the opening bell from the Oval Office as he hosted officials from New York Stock Exchange and also NASDAQ to commemorate the event. And of course, the other big news is Michael Cohen talking about how he reconciled with President Trump. That is a biggie, and I'm sure you feel great about that, Michael, right?
I do. Almost as good as I feel about this red card overturning decision. I can't wait to get home. I can't wait to get home at FIFA. Exactly. Can't wait to go and watch the game tonight at 8 p.m.
Everybody, I just came in from Union Station. The whole place was like glued with the watching the matches. And we're going to have a lot more after the break. We're going to talk to General Jack Keane about what's happening with Iran. President Trump heading to Turkey today. He never stops, John. That after the break.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And guys, in a matter of hours, President Trump is going to be heading to Turkey for the big NATO summit. Obviously, everything with Russia, Ukraine, a big issue there on the table they're going to be talking about. And of course, this comes as everything's happening with Iran. And joining us now is the great General Jack Keane, retired 4-star general, the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, and also John Fox News senior strategic analyst. And what do you think is going to happen here, General? First, with Turkey, how important is this visit and his meeting with Erdogan? Because, of course, he plays a big role with everything with Iran, too.
Yeah, well, certainly the NATO summit is clearly important, and hopefully we can get our arms around a couple of things. One is certainly support for Ukraine. The war has moved in their favor at Putin's expense now, and that's the first time that has decisively happened in 5 years, and Putin is now taking almost 40,000 casualties a month, and his personnel system cannot replace those casualties sufficiently. That is also the first time he's had that experience in 5 years. It's time to put more pressure on Putin to clearly come to the table and go to a ceasefire, and hopefully there'll be some consensus on that. Dealing with Iran, I think the frustration with the European allies and some of them not responding in terms of letting us use their bases and airspace, that certainly is something that will not completely go away, but a lot of things have happened that are positive since. We've been using air bases throughout the region for weeks. We've been using their airspace and no problems with that whatsoever. And people don't know, but the United Kingdom and France fighters have been in the region helping to defend bases and our allies in the region in a defensive mode, attacking Iranian drones that were attacking in the region. So I think that we've moved in the right direction, and hopefully those wounds, which are justified, and frustration, which was justified, and the problems we had, we can move forward as allies and partners. We got a major enemy in Iran here, and we need everybody's cooperation for sure.
Now,
Turkey.
Turkey. What the heck is going on in Turkey, General?
Yeah, Turkey is a problem. I think Erdogan really wants to return to the Ottoman Empire. His strategic objectives are not aligned with ours. He's pro-Hamas. He's anti-Israel. He's Muslim Brotherhood. I know the president likes him as a strong man, but he's not aligned with us in terms of what our and also pushing back comprehensively against Iran along with our allies. So hopefully we can make some progress with President Erdogan at this meeting, because I know the President Erdogan is hosting the summit as a NATO member, and the President will likely spend more time with him than he will any other leader. And I'm hoping that we can move in a more realistic direction in dealing with him.
Well, my opinion, and strictly my opinion, there is no way. I mean, everybody is talking about F-35s, is it, to Turkey? On a scale of 1 to 10, it's about a -1, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. F-35s make no sense. He's already shown some allegiance by bringing in Russia's most significant air defense capability. And we don't need both of those things put together there with the Russians who are assisting him with that air defense capability, having access to an F-35 to figure out how to defeat an F-35, which is a stealth penetration aircraft, and using Russian defense systems. Certainly that it should never happen. And hopefully we maintain the stand we've been maintaining through multiple presidents, that should not happen.
I remember like yesterday, General, when we were who was the president at that time? Wanted to fly over Turkey for Iraq 25 years ago?
Yeah, we wanted to bring the 4th Infantry Division through Turkey so they can move into Iraq from the north. There were 27 Iraqi divisions north of Baghdad, and our plan was to parachute into the airport at Baghdad with the 82nd, do a aviation assault with helicopters north of Baghdad with the 101st, and we didn't want those divisions to come down from the north to interfere with that. And Turkey said no to us, and that was very frustrating when that occurred, obviously. And that took place during the Bush administration.
How can we call that a NATO ally?
Unit in there. Again?
How can that be a NATO ally?
Well, it begs the question, doesn't it? I totally agree with the question you're asking. How can a NATO ally behave the way this ally has behaved? And it doesn't make much sense, does it?
No.
They are a strategic
placed right there as a part of Europe and also as a part of the Middle East. And that strategic location has always had tremendous value to NATO as maintaining the southern part of NATO in terms of security. But Erdogan, and I think what happens here, John, just to be frank, we know Erdogan isn't forever, and we're looking at Turkey in the long run and getting them back to where they used to be prior to Erdogan. But we'll see. He is really a handful, and he's not on the same page with us when it comes to security and peace and stability in the Middle East.
Well, keep us posted, General Jackeen. It's going to be very interesting to see this sort of dance that happens with Turkey, because you're right. They seem to have their own objectives, and they may not be in line, a lot of them, with American interests and the rest of NATO's interests, too. So we'll see where this goes. But President Trump, let's see how he can finesse this. I mean, it's been amazing to watch the chess pieces. General, thank you very much.
Yeah, great talking to you, John. Great talking to you, Rita. Take care.
So
have a good week.
Thank you so much. And joining us now, we have Peter Schweitzer. He's head of the Government Accountability Institute. And Peter, boy, oh boy, the Department of Justice is looking into Neville Roy Singham. Talk about what he has been doing to America, you believe, through some of these efforts. You have done, I think, more investigation than anybody on this.
Yeah, Neville Roy Singham, very interesting guy, an American citizen, a self-described Maoist, started a tech company years ago called ThoughtWorks, then sold it to a private equity firm in London that is partly owned by China's sovereign wealth fund, their government. He made about $1 billion off of that deal, and then promptly moved to Shanghai, China, which is where he lives now. He pals around with CCP officials. He's certainly simpatico with their worldview. And what he's been doing is pouring money into organizations in the United States, the People's Forum, which is kind of a meeting place for Antifa groups. He's been connected to groups like the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is aggressively involved in violent protests. And what the Department of Justice is looking at, I think, is particularly that foreign angle. What are his ties to the Chinese and how that might be influencing the actions that he takes? If he's not disclosing those contacts, he could be in violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act. And of course, it could go even further than that, depending what the allegation is. There are also concerns about the tax status. These are 501c3 and C4 charities that are supposed to be for the general good. The allegation is that these are actually disruptive organizations that are causing trouble on American streets.
So where does it go from here with all of that? And what can the Department of Justice do? By the way, Peter, in studio, we also have Michael Cohen with us, who's been joining
Peter,
us.
how are you?
Yeah, how are you?
Hey, Michael.
Yeah, a lot to talk about, my friend. There's every single day there seems to be something new popping up.
Yep, it does. A lot of tumult on the street. And, you know, some people obviously just ordinary Americans expressing their views, but it's these organized efforts, Michael, where you have these cadre of radical groups. They describe themselves as Marxists. They say that they're aligned with the Chinese Communist Party. These groups like Freedom Road Socialist Organization and Party for Socialism and Liberation. And these groups are the vanguard. So you might have a peaceful protest somewhere where people are, you know, holding signs about ICE and they don't like it. People from these groups will show up and they'll start, you know, throwing Molotov cocktails. They'll start throwing projectiles because they want a fight and they want the disruption. And I think what the Department of Justice is going to look at is laws that might have been violated. They're going to use their subpoena power to look at the flow of funds. They'll be able to look at communication. It's going to be very, very interesting, I think, for them to be able to look under the hood, something that I've not been able to do because I'm just a journalist. But I imagine they're going to find some pretty explosive stuff.
Well, when they do, that's when they need to put it forth, show the American people exactly what's going on. Don't talk about it, show it. Right? I mean, that's always the problem when they turn around and they throw something out there, but then 2 weeks go by and the American people, well, what happened to that? Right? when they have this information, 100%. Anybody throws a Molotov cocktail at law enforcement, whether it's ICE, police, it makes no difference. They throw it at anybody. They need to be indicted and they need to be incarcerated for that action.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and you really have to, as a prosecutor, I think, step up. Look, the claim from the left is going to be this is just political, you're silencing speech. But as you pointed out, you're talking about violent criminal activity. And when they have brought these cases, I think there was the case in Texas involving some Antifa members that were stirring up violence. They were prosecuted and they were convicted. There was a group down in Georgia that was opposed to Cop City, this training place for law enforcement. They were doing the same thing, violent protests, throwing Molotov cocktails at law enforcement. They were actually brought up on domestic terrorism charges. So you can have success in this space. It's got to be fact-driven, and I agree with you 100%. You have to put the evidence out there for the American people to see and to know precisely what it is you're saying they're doing and what evidence you have for what they've done.
And Peter, that's where you can come in, right? Because a lot of Americans do not see this type of information. You know, they hear it, but then they don't see the information.
And I think a lot of people, everybody can do it. We kind of engage in, mirror imaging, right? Somebody's out protesting. Well, I might go out and protest something on a different side, and I don't want people squelching my speech. But again, there's a big, big, big difference between a protest where you're holding a sign, you're voicing it, you're doing chants, you're doing whatever, and disrupting law enforcement or engaging in violent acts. And I still believe, even in jurisdictions like Washington, D.C. and New York, if that's where these cases are brought, I still believe the majority of American people understand the difference and they're prepared to prosecute people if they've committed those crimes.
Well, Peter, keep us posted. This is big stuff. And there's a lot of issues here. You got to come back on again, too, because we want to talk about birthright tourism, because you have done some blockbuster stuff on that. So let's make sure we get you on soon on that, Peter. You're the best.
Yeah, always great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me, Rita.
Thank you very, very much. And I think we have, we're going to go after the break. We're going to get some more details on all this Graham Plattner stuff. And also we have former Congressman Mike Rogers is going to be joining us right after the break. He's running in that enormous race there in the Senate in Michigan. And we're going to talk about that right after the break.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And
let's go to Maine
and
get some breaking news and see what the heck is going on in Maine. And who do we have on there?
Yeah, we have
GOP chair there.
Exactly, Jim Diamond, who is the Maine GOP chair. And Jim, what do you know about what's happening with Graham Plattner with this blockbuster news? These allegations of now a sexual assault against him.
It's just incredible. We've been trying to tell people for months and months and months this man was on a downward spiral. They kept backing him and backing him and backing him. But we're soon to see the meteoric demise, the crash and burn of another Democratic socialist here in Maine.
Is he in or out? The reason I'm asking is there are reports out there that he's, quote, taking time to reflect. Do we know if that means that is he leaving, officially leaving? Has there been any notice of that?
Not yet officially, but that's a buzzword, dog whistle for Bernie Sanders is trying to talk him into stepping out. They've had enough. And I'm sure there's more coming than just this. So I think even Bernie Sanders and AOC have had enough of this guy. Enough is enough, and they'll find some other Democratic socialists up here to carry their flag.
Yeah, it's amazing that it has actually ended, it looks like, near. We'll find out that it's taken this much. I'll say that. I mean, it's shocking, all the allegations against this guy. And now it takes a sexual assault allegation to get to this point. It should have happened a lot longer ago. We'll see where it goes. He has a little bit of a deadline,
right? It might actually be even worse from what you're hearing tonight. It might even be worse.
Wow.
Well, maybe we'll tune in with you tomorrow and find out what's going on. But right now, thank you for coming on. But we have to go to Michigan right now and find out what's going on in Michigan.
Great. And let's go to former Congressman Mike Rogers, of course, Senator and also a candidate there for the U.S. Senate. We love him. FBI guy, law enforcement. You have such a great background. And Congressman, it's wonderful to have you back here. What's the latest in your race? Because you got to win. We love you. America needs you.
Well, we had a race here that was a three-way absolute three-car accident pile-up with the three Democrats. And now it's just a head-on-head collision here as the two – one pulled out. Let me back up. So one of the candidates dropped out yesterday. So now there's two. And it looks like Abdul El Sayed, who is very close to that Democrat Socialist of America agenda, is pulling ahead. I mean, the crazier they get, the more he rises in the polls.
Mike, you mean pulling ahead in the Democratic primary?
What's that?
Yeah, pulling ahead in the Democratic primary.
Pulling ahead in the Democratic primary.
Yeah, not against us.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Sorry. Thank you for clarifying, Judge. You know, when you're on the judge, you got to get your facts right. It's really
I know, you got to stay on the ball with this guy. I'm telling you, Mike.
Mike, listen, one of my favorite congressmen is going to be a great United States senator. It's absolute. Mike, would you tell people why it's so important that you win this Senate seat for America's future?
Well, I mean, if you think about what they're advocating, hey, they don't like America, number one. I mean, the whole pitch was a lot like Mandami's pitch on the 4th of July by this Abdul El Sayed, who's running for the Democrat nomination, about America is bad, 250 years of mistakes, and they've got to change it. And if you think about how insulting that is to everybody who has made America the country it is today, that's the direction they're going. Defund the police, men and women's sports. They want the government to take over your health care. They're going to take over the tech companies completely. I mean, this is so out of bounds for people who actually get up and go to work every day. This isn't going to give you financial freedom. It's going to mean the government owns you a little bit more. And so this is so important if we want to continue to grow as a nation with making sure that we protect our families and protect our freedoms and protect our prosperity. This election is that important because they are going exactly the wrong direction.
And Mike, the other problem is this fellow supports the Islamist agenda, which is America deserved 9/11, and takes support for people who hate America and hate our values and our interests in terms of mutual respect and tolerance.
Oh, absolutely. He's completely anti-Semitic in his comments. Didn't want to condemn the person who loaded his car with explosives and tried to blow up a synagogue here in Michigan. He didn't want to say anything about the Ayatollah's death because he thought people in a part of our state would be really mad if he did. I mean, this guy is dangerous. It's all about division with them. It's all about don't like these people, so give us power. I mean, it's really dangerous conversation. So just the fact that he's so anti-Semitic should be disqualifying in my book. But then you double down on the fact that he believes that a whole bunch of Americans deserve to have the government go after them for being successful Americans. Just tells you a lot about this new direction. And here's the good news, gang. I don't know how far they have to look, but socialism, and I don't care what you call it, Democrat socialism or otherwise, has a 100% failure rate. And we ought to kind of wake up to this and really get engaged this election cycle. And if people want to know more about that, they can come to rogersforsenate.com, find out who we are, what we're doing, and help us out. We need all the help we can get.
And, Mike Rogers, tell everybody also again your background, too, because, we have listeners all over the country. Your background's amazing. I mean, it is exactly the kind of person that I want to see in public office because your life's been about public service.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rita. Listen, I've served in the United States Army. It was a great honor to do it. I was an ordnance guy in the 7th Infantry Division. I went from there as a special agent with the FBI. Two things I wanted to do when I joined the FBI: chase Soviet spies, which dates me a little bit, and I wanted to either that or work organized crime. And I was successful enough at the academy. I got sent to Chicago and worked on the organized crime squad. We decided to get into politics. I tried the reactive side of criminal justice work and decided to try the proactive side. served in the United States Congress for 14 years, was the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee at a really important time in our country's history, and then decided, hey, listen, you're not supposed to be there forever. You're supposed to go back home. So my wife and I, we got out of Congress. I've been in the private sector doing mostly tech work, cybersecurity, things like that, and quantum computing, and just decided, my God, this place is so broken. We need somebody that knows how to go back there, that stands up for America, that stands up for our law enforcement community, stands up for our faith and freedoms. And I just thought it was so important to get back in to try to do this a decade later.
Well, Mike, keep us posted. Again, tell everybody to get more information about you real quick.
RogersForSenate.com, and it's ROGERSFOR for Senate.com. Get on there, find out about us. We'd love to have your viewers help. And if you're from Michigan and hearing this, tell all your family this is the big one.
And when you look up U.S. Senator up in the dictionary, a picture of Mike Rogers is there, Army veteran, former FBI, law enforcement, middle America. And if I lived in Michigan, I would be voting for him.
Very kind of you. Remember, you can always move here. We have same-day registration.
All right, we're all moving there.
That's right.
I love it.
Thanks you so
Mike.
much. And
Thank you, Mike. And you guys, by the way, there's some other breaking news coming in. Just really quick. Okay, real quick.
Breaking news, WABC.
So the writing on the wall here for Graham Plattner, you guys, just coming in here that Ro Khanna, who of course is one of his biggest supporters, is now publicly urging him to end his Senate bid. So it may be minutes away from we get some official word, because he was one of his biggest backers, him and Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Rita. And what do we all stand for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
And we join the Mark Levin Show in progress.
Thanks for listening to Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. You can hear Katz and Cosby weekdays at 5. It's the 5 o'clock show on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?